in the thick of it. Yeah, we are in the thick of it. We are in the weeds of construction right now. So sorry I didn't get more fancy for you, but it's all good.
Yeah.
So yeah, as you kind of said, this started out honestly, it's been 8 years. So, 8 years in the making to construction, and I'll kind of go through the journey of it, and hopefully that'll like hit the points that you guys wanted to. So, it all started simply, my son Dexter, he loved splash pads, and living in Southwest Iowa, we would drive, anywhere from up to an hour just to go find a splash pad that he could play in. He has a rare genetic disorder, tuberous sclerosis, epilepsy, so he has non-cancerous tumors in his brain, epilepsy and autism, and then just a lot of developmental delays. So the playgrounds, the splash pad, like just a lot of things didn't work for him. And so honestly, I was like, this like we should just have one in our town. And so that's where it all started. Little did I know 8 years later. No, he is now 17. And so, but he's going to love it just as much as anybody else. So, we're excited for that. So yeah, initially, I approached the city, um, of Trainer and said, hey, like I've done some estimates and some research. At the time, it was going to be 8 years ago, is, we could have reasonably had it done for 50 to $75,000. And so about 8 years ago, with the company that I was working for, and like there's a spot at the park, like everything just seemed to line up. So two other moms from town were like, yep, I'm gonna come and join you. So it was the trio of us kind of spearheading the project. We got the blessing from city council to start raising funds. At that time, we created an account with the Community Foundation for Southwest Iowa so that we could be housed under them to raise the money. And it was on homecoming. I remember that first homecoming. So in Trainer, like we have Highway 92 that runs through it. And so they block off half of the highway and then we have a little parade. And so I literally like walked down the street handing out these flyers, asking for donations and announcing that we are working on this. And so that's really how we got the fundraising started, with that and get it going. Well, things happen, city administrators change, and then all of a sudden, the next thing we knew, um, at the park where we were going to put it at, they were going to require us to basically redo the storm sewer down there. And so now this reasonable project was going to cost us between 100 and 200,000 additional dollars to put the splash pad down there. And so we were like, we're just going to go on pause for a little bit. Like there were other areas in town that we were trying to explore partnerships with and different things. But everything just seemed really hard, honestly. And so the three of us were like, we're just going to pause for just a minute, see what naturally can kind of come up and evolve. We're still going forward with it. Um, and then in the meantime, we have this thing called COVID, which, yes, it would have been great to have a splash pad, but everything kind of, as we all know, everything shut down then. And so after we were kind of coming back to the world, we started to renew the project. And there's an organization in town. They're called Vision Trainer, and they had purchased a large amount of land to put in ball fields, so soccer fields and softball fields. So it was kind of a natural fit that we could potentially go down there with them. So here's kind of some of the challenges. Like right off the bat, I'm like, it's a great thing. Everybody's gonna love it and have fun. But it's not always as easy as we think it's going to be. So in working with the city, you have that they're a government entity. And so how they procure things or buy things are very different, and their rules are very different than working with a private entity. And so that was part of the process too. We're like, if we could not work with the city, it's going to be easier for us. Because putting it in a park, that's now the city's land. And so it's a different set of rules. And so this other organization is a private entity, so it's just like private land. So we're like, okay. Um, and so we started the conversations with them about putting it on their land. In the meantime, for all of this, I went out to California and the guy who was helping us, our contractor that was helping us with the play with the splash pad and everything, he's like, you've got to go to this place called Magical Bridge. And so I went out to Magical Bridge. I would highly recommend looking at it. They do like $3 to $6 million all-inclusive accessible playgrounds, and it is truly magical. I'm like, wow. So then I was like, we have to do a playground too. And so, but I was like, but I can't do like $3 to $6 million in a playground. But they're also like they're out in California, they're in Tokyo, so they're in um much broader areas. So I was like, I'm curious what we could do for maybe 50, 50, $100,000, just kind of throwing it out there. So I actually was grateful and lucky to have some conversations with the founders of Magical Bridge and really just like getting an understanding of how intentional they made every element of their playgrounds. And their website, I haven't looked at it in a while, but their website's really great about talking about the intention of how they do it. Their partnerships is they do build them for the city and then they give them to the city. So it's like the city gives them the land, they build it, and then they give the playground to the city, and then they're kind of out of it. So it's a different model. So I keep it open because I'm like, there's so many ways that you can do this and have these partnerships. Um, and so then started to work on a playground. I used to teach Pilates, and I was working with this mom whose son had tragically been killed in Trainer. He was out running for wrestling practice, and in Trainer we don't have many sidewalks, and so historically for years, even my husband will say, "Yeah, we always ran down this road. We always ran down this gravel road." Well, unfortunately, there was a distracted driver, and he was killed while running for wrestling practice. And I know that she had kind of been trying to do something as a memorial, as a way to keep our kids safe, in town. And she was hitting roadblocks too. So I was like, hey, why don't you come in with us? And so she's like, really? I'm like, yeah, I mean, it makes sense, right? We have a splash pad, we have an inclusive playground, and now we have a memorial head, um, a trail memorial head, and a trail. So my husband likes to remind me too. He's like, remember when this is just a little splash pad? I'm like, yes, I know, but there's so many great things that are going to come about this. So now our project grew really large. In the meanwhile, we're still in conversations with this other land. We were able to apply for a grant from the Iowa West Foundation, which their money comes for the casinos in Council Bluffs. And so we were able to get $50,000, and that was what we needed to pay for the splash pad. So we took that $50,000, we bought the splash pad, and we stored it in Lisa, one of our other partners, we stored it in their farm, in their shed. Because we're like, we just want this, we've got it before prices raise up. So we stuck it in there. Um, and then continued on. And I say continued on, we worked for close to 2 years on a lease negotiation with this other entity. Um, we were we wanted to be very conscientious of, the lease that we were entering in. It's not my life goal to run a splash pad and a playground for the rest of my life. So, eventually, who takes this over? Um, and then while we're still in negotiations for this, Iowa announced Destination Iowa, a grant. So it was a state grant. They were giving away, it was COVID money that they needed to give away, and they were for community projects. And so at that point, Vision Trainer, who we're in land negotiations with, our organization, which is called Trainer Parks and Trails, we eventually formed our own 501(c)(3), um, for the long term of it. And then the city of Trainer. So the three of us entities, we all came together to apply for a Destination Iowa grant. And so Vision Trainer has like a building that they were applying their money to. The city of Trainer um, used a road. We had a new neighborhood built, but there was no way to connect that neighborhood to the town, really. And so they were doing it for a road. And then we put in our project, which at the time had continued to grow. So it was the splash pad, the inclusive playground, the trail, the memorial trailhead, and then we had a a miracle ball field included in that also. So we put in a grant. I think it was for a grant request. I believe the total was like for $2.7 million. And we didn't get it. And so it was a very hefty grant. Any state grants, any funding grants like that, it was a lot of work. I'm grateful that there again had been a city management change, and the new city manager had really taken on this grant work for us. So we didn't get it. So again, we keep plugging on. And it was about 6 or 8 months after they announced that initial who got the grants, they came back and said some of those organizations didn't take their money, didn't take the grant, so we're granting out more. So we graciously were in the second round. Um, I believe our initial ask was 2.5 million. We got 800,000. So between the three of us. And so it's like we're super excited and grateful that we got that money. But just how the grant was, we were still expected to build all of the entities, even though we got way less money than we had actually asked for. So, um, back to the drawing board, all of us went. At that time, an organization in Council Bluffs had announced that they were building a playground and they were going to put a miracle ball field in there also. And so we said, you know what, let's take ours out. That will reduce our cost. And we're, 2 miracle ball fields within 20 minutes is probably not necessary. So we had to ask for approval to take that out. So we were granted that. So when you hear 800,000, it's a lot of money. The city got 400,000 of that. Vision Trainer got about 200,000 and we got about 200,000. So it was great. It's excited. We had $200,000 more than we didn't. But the kicker is that you have to spend the money and they get reimbursed 31 cents on the dollar. So we had 2 years to utilize all of these funds, and the project has to be completed by the end of September of this year, in just a couple of months. Otherwise, all the money has to be paid back. So it was really a matter of getting created because at this point, you've heard me say like $50,000, right? We have a sister organization called Trainer Days, and our board is also on the Trainer Days board and a few other people, and we run the town festival. So all of the money for the last 15 years that a weekend town festival um, has gone into this project. So it's been about roughly around $10,000 a year that we would run this monthly town festival, and then that money would go towards our project too. So we're utilizing as many sources and as ways as we can to raise this money. But still, we didn't have enough. Essentially, we need like $600,000 in cash to to do the receipts to then get this $200,000 back. And so there was a catch 22 to that very labor intensive grant. But we, again, were able to go back to our partners. The city was building a road that came in well over what it was projected to cost because it had, you know, life had happened. And then Vision Trainer, their building had cost so much more. And so the state said, yes, we'll allow you all just submit the receipts to us, and whoever gets the money to use it, it's up to you guys. So we are now in the process. We're still waiting for the funding, but we are in the process of being able to utilize that $200,000 also to do this. So we have gone through many renditions of what it was going to look like. In the first ones, we were going to build our own bathrooms. And then as we sat down, we're like, not 500 feet away, there's going to be a building with bathrooms. So, like, this doesn't make sense for us to build all of our own amenities. And so we combined in with them. So then that continued the lease negotiations because now our mechanical room is in their building. And I said, I want every aspect of this project to be as accessible as possible. And I want a restroom where we can put an adult changing table in there. So then that went into that building also. And so their building had to get larger to accommodate some of our things. So we are paying them some money for the use of their building also. And that's really the sticking point in the negotiation of the lease, was how that money would come about and the funding. Because essentially we're renting a 1 acre plot of land from a private entity that is also a public use space. So there's a lot of, like they said, even a splash pad, you could put a splash pad in your backyard, but that's still considered a public space. So you have to comply with all these other things. And then the playground and all of that. So we were very grateful. We had an individual who has stuck with us since the first day of day one, who is a playground designer. And so he has worked with us. He has charged us very little money to do all of the design work for us and the construction work. Because of this Destination Iowa grant money and the deadline of September of this year, everything had to be built. We had to start construction. So in all reality, we are at about 65% of our total funding. So this project will be over $1 million by the time we get done. And in order to save money, we are doing a lot of the work. So we there was the land was all hills where we are. And so, we were able to do some really fun things. Like we got a group of, I think it was about 10 farmers to bring out their equipment and grate the land, bring the land to grade and everything that we would need. So they came up with their rotations. They worked for about a week out there grading the land. They didn't charge us anything. So that help right there saved us about 150 to $200,000 just to get the land graded. We provided lunches for them every day. We brought donuts and water and just everything we could. But that was kind of a nice way to really start rallying the troops around our community and our project. And that was some of the marketing that we did with this is we want this to be a community build. And so I will be the first one to say it would be so much easier if you got 150% of the funding that you needed and you can just hire the company to come in and build everything. Like, and you could go out and take pictures in the morning and the nighttime and be good. I mean, I'd be very jealous, honestly. Like, my body has not been this sore in a really long time. Scooping rock and all kinds of stuff with that. But it's been a lot of fun. And so throughout every element of this, design was one element of it. Um, my son, has some limitations mobility wise, and so I knew about that. But I had a lot of conversations with Nancy Baker Curtis, with the Changing Spaces Iowa and how to, what all does that room need to look like? We are extremely grateful. We were able to get a grant through Variety Iowa for the adult changing table. And then we had some other parts of our community. Others give us like $1,000 or 1,500 here or there to go towards that project. And the gentleman who I talked to about the adult changing table gave me such a good discount that I could also get a height adjustable sink. So for that Variety Iowa grant money, we were not only able to get the table, but we were also able to get the sink. And so it's going to be an amazing space with that. So that was also one of the partners that we are working with in there. Our local football team, they come out, 30 kids at a time, and they help us do anything. So we are really looking at all kinds of partnerships. We've put out we have a volunteer sign up, and this is what we need to do. Anything from painting to moving mulch to we have construction, individuals in town that own construction businesses that will bring their auger and dig our holes and cement. And then just sharing about our project and the meaning and what it is. Like the splash pad pour, they gave us like a $15,000 discount because we shared how it all started and they bought into our vision and they wanted to help the community too. So we have used as many local people as possible to make this happen. So like I said, we're at 65% of our funding. So when we are able to open up right now, it's not 100% of what I envisioned it or dreamed it would be. And we want to get something open for the community, you know. Like right now, we aren't going to have fences around it. And so that's one of the first things that we're going to raise money for is so that we can have a fence. So there's no eloping, it is next to a parking lot. And so, or to try and limit the eloping. So when you see stuff, right now it's like, it's not 100% accessible. And we're working towards that. We're hopeful that over the next few years, it would be great if it was faster than that, but that we will get to that money. Some other things that we've done to raise funds is we've had a mouse derby. I think 3 now. We're getting ready to hold our 4th one. So if you think of like the Kentucky Derby with the horses, it's like that, except we have mice and we're in the party room of a restaurant. And they have a board. We hire this company to come out. They bring their mice, and we have a mouse derby and mouse roulette. And every time, like 10,000 is our magic number. And we hold events, we raise about $10,000. And so, yeah, we've had a mouse derby. We've done music bingo. We're getting ready to hold like a trivia contest, and then just asking a lot of the community. We've had a lot of members donate like memorial benches. So we had a forum that was like, we need shelters, we need benches. And we've had a lot of the communities or like class of funds, class of such and such, donate towards that. So it's really been a lot of like trying a lot of different things, and figuring out. I've spent many hours writing grants, and then just reaching out to corporate sponsors. And so I happen to like, I know how to write grants and I don't mind doing it. We talked to a grant writer, but honestly, it was like for some of the grants we were writing, it was going to cost us like $4,000 to $5,000 to have them write the grants. And so we're like, we really had to assess like, is this a grant we're going to go for or not? The other really interesting thing is that it's easier to get money to make a park accessible that's not than it is to build an accessible park. So there are several funds out there that will help you turn a park into making it accessible. But the disclaimer is will not do new construction. So, I mean, in all honesty, some of the things that we're doing, we may now go after some of those grants because we'll have a park that's not fully, accessible, inclusive, just like we want it to. And that's a way that we might be able to get some of the money with that too. So, um, let me see. Just kind of looking through some of my notes here. You want to see it? I'll show you the pictures of it. But if anybody has any questions, feel free to ask or just, these are our renderings of it here. Let me find it. Is that the one I want? Yes. Yeah, that's it. Okay, so do you see a screen? Yep, it looks like it over there. Okay. Let me make this a little bigger here. Did it get bigger? Sorry, I can't actually see what you're saying. Okay, there. Yeah, so this is the whole kind of design concept of it. We had an architect give us a huge discount to do some of this too, and I'll show you more of the documents. But this is our plot as a whole. So you'll see that here's the splash pad. And then right out here will be the accessible parking. The building would be kind of right over on this area to the left. But in between the splash pad and the playground is going to be kind of like a landscaped berm because we don't want the wet kids running over to the playground and vice versa. So there'll be like a landscaped berm here. And then the playground, we have an accessible obstacle course that was intentionally designed. And then on the right-hand side over here is Tristan's trail. So obviously Tristan was an athlete. He loved to work out. And one of the things his mom said is like, we just randomly find him working out in different places. And so this kind of ninja course was intentionally designed as a memorial for him, to just stop and work out wherever. This over here is a lawn and a green space with benches. So again, the vision is that either teams or families or groups can come over to this space and like get together, hang out. There's lawn, they can stretch. There is we have about a half a mile loop right now of the trail, so it'll be a 1 mile loop that also goes around this whole thing. So that's what we call the trailhead, so they can meet and go around there. So okay. This is Dexter's Dream Playground. So very early on, again, as we were driving over to Omaha for everything, I said to my husband, I was like, this is silly. Like, we've just passed 3 bowling alleys and we could be doing bowling events ourselves. or I was going to Omaha for the Sensory Santa event. And I was like, what if I just brought Santa to us? And so we started Dexter's Dream Foundation. So we too have our own 501(c)(3) that we do events and help families around Southwest Iowa or our events. So when you see Dexter's Dream, that's what it's through. So again, working with um, the playground designer. This is the area for the Dexter's Dream. So there'll be a music zone, the echoes, the bongos, and electric guitar, and we'll continue to add to these things. A swing zone, which will have arch swings. There's a bended group swing. There is, it's either on the next page or it's not here, but there's a swing like where someone could sit on both sides of it. So you could have an individual and then a caregiver on both sides of it facing each other. Um, there's a spin zone, so the summit spinners, which an individual can get into this from here. The spinners, kind of the cocoons. The ADA spinner, so a wheelchair could go in this one, and then stand or sit and spin things. And then the accessible course includes battle ropes, a hand bike, so you can sit or stand on there, weave posts. So they're just posts, but then you can weave in and out of it. So, one of my children could kind of be running through it. If someone was in a wheelchair, they could be weaving their way through it also at the same time. And then a single vaulting bar, which we actually have. I forget, they're up right now. There's 3 or 4 of them up there that can be used for different purposes, getting on top of, going underneath, going around, um, things like that. And then me. And again, this is the start of it all. As we get more funding, we will add more to this. This is like the up to 65% of the funding. So Tristan's Trailhead, this is this area here. So this is, if you were to drive up there right now, Tristan's Trailhead is up there. Our playground equipment is on a truck as we speak. Um, Coming up from Texas, it was overseas, so it came over on a boat. And now it's coming up from Texas, and we will get it next Wednesday to put that in the ground. But Tristan's Trailhead, again, consists of the Ninja course. So it's the low angled cargo net balance beams. We have 2 of them at varying heights. There's a cargo net climber, rings, a couple of different ladders, horizontal ropes course. And then we have this dash track, this dash station, which will be the first facility to ever have one of these. And so it's basically a 40-yard dash. So you can start on one end of it and go to the other end of it, and then it times you. So as you cross the first pylon, it starts a timer, and then on these end things here, you can look at your time. So yeah, it's great for sports teams. And we had a prototype of it up for a while and they really loved it. But I also had several older individuals like who would go do it and like, oh, I beat my time this time. As well as again, anyone with mobility impaired, like everybody will be able to utilize it as a fitness mechanism. Um, and then of course just the lawn is the lawn space and we can have a whole bunch of stuff going on out there. So this is just kind of another view of it, what it looks like. These red things here are shelters. The shelters are also, I can show you a picture of those, but that's also where our donor walls will be. We will have a story about each of them. So there'll be a Dexter's Dream story, there'll be a Tristan's Memorial on his, and then we'll have all of our donors. We, from the beginning, said we don't care how much it is. If you even donate a penny, we're going to put your name on there. So there were kids that had lemonade stands, who donated money. Um, and just it's really been a community project, which has been fun. Now, mind you, Trainer's a community of like 1,500 people. So I'm like, okay, if we can do it here, you guys can do it anywhere. Just another look at it again. really thinking from intentionality of the landscaping, where the entrances are, and eventually there will be a fence around all of this. And then this will be a walking path that's around Tristan's trail too. So if someone wants a shorter path, they could do that there. Yeah, and then just the changing spaces, Iowa. So grateful that we are able to have the changing table in there. We'll actually be the only one in Southwest Iowa, and there are very few in Nebraska also. I don't know of any in the parks. Um, let's see, did it change over to the shelter? Yes? Okay, so, oh, let me make it bigger. So this here, this red building is actually the building that sits right by the splash pad. If you look on this, well, you can't really see it, but this far left corner is where the accessible changing table is. So they'll be able to go in there, get right on the sidewalk, come out to the splash pad. But this is, simply what our shelters are going to look like. We tried to keep it functional and easy. Down below here is where all of the donor walls will be on there. We have lots of drawings of everything like you see here. I had to kind of look through my documents and be like, which documents should I show? Which ones not? This is just another look at, let me scroll up here, sorry. This is another look at Tristan's trail. So this was one of the earlier renditions of it. And again, trying to keep things as accessible as possible. Right now, underneath all of this stuff is playground mulch, which we're not a fan. I mean, we're not a fan of. A, you have to have it for safety. B, we would love to have the fully rubberized surface. But this area right here, just for Tristan's Trail to have that surface, would probably run us a couple $100,000. So we're getting it going with the playground mulch. And again, I'm going to go after those grants to make things more fully accessible. We also think too that once this is open, everything is open and the community sees it, that hopefully potentially we'll be able to get more donations out of the community. I'll be very honest, these last couple of years, it's really hard to raise funds, as we all know. The cost of living has gone up. Many of the foundations and the corporations are donating less. So that has been part of the challenge too. But yeah, so just another look at those things here. Um, and then I think I'm going to have to stop sharing. And then let me reshare it here again. So here's the splash pad. So this is what the splash pad will look like. I always look at this and I'm like, it doesn't look very big, but it's a rendition of it. It's a rendering of it. So it will be. And as my child just reminded me, Mom, there is no bucket. I'm like, you're right. I didn't put a bucket on this. So it is not my household approved. But so we have, these little play buckets here. I don't know the names of things, but those were designed so an individual in a wheelchair or a chair or something could play right alongside their peers. The sprouts, everyone loves to, run under those. This is like a sunflower kind of bucket that squirts out, rains down. And then the mechanism that turns it on and off. So I would just say if you are interested in including a splash pad with it, just come knowing that Iowa is the hardest state in the country to build a splash pad on with their regulations. And what our people would tell us, like they're over-regulated, but there's no way anybody is ever going to potentially even closely get sick from being on the splash pad water. So we spent an extra I think it was $10,000, $8,000 to $10,000 on putting a reusing system. So some splash pads just use the water and it goes out. And ours, the water is reused. So it goes through a sand filter, UV filters, all kinds of filters. But also for the water bill, because we'll have to pay the water bill because we're on private land. But we got a good rate from the city. So, but the water bill, the water usage will actually be less than a house, because we spent that extra money to do that. So, yeah, I know I've just told a lot of story here and everything. So our splash pad inspection is next Wednesday. So that's where our focus is right now for construction. We also on Wednesday we get the playground equipment. So we will get the playground equipment in the week after that. I would anticipate probably early to middle of August, we're going to have like a grand opening. Again, 65% of the grand opening, but enough to where everyone will be able to come out there and play. We're going to keep our splash pad open until the weather goes below 70. So after school and on the weekends, so that we get a chance to use it. Um, and yeah, as we get more funding, we'll just continue to make it more and more accessible. We've really tried to be very thoughtful, and I've contacted individuals who have lived experience in other areas that I don't know about, disability wise. So we can make sure that we are able to be open to everything. And that's our whole point that we have put on here, is that we want with anybody, any age, any size, any ability to feel welcomed as they're coming here. Even our splash pad signs, we have a do not, and then the legal stuff that we have to have on there. And that first one on there is do be kind, like, and be a good person. So we're hopeful that throughout our space and the inclusion, that this is really, it's a destination where families will come and feel safe and welcome and want to stay and play for hours on end. So I don't know if anybody has any questions or
Thank you, Wendy. That was amazing.
yeah.
I learned so much, and I feel like you probably found every little pitfall along the way, every little yeah, trap door, but that's
It feels like that, I'll be honest. Yeah.
I'd open it up to our grads to ask any questions.
I did have a question, Wendy. Um, Last weekend, my husband and son went to the inclusive playground here in Clear Lake, and they remarked how hot the equipment was that they couldn't even get on it. Was color like an intentional thought of yours also?
Yes. So we looked at the color. The other thing, again, and that other 35% of funding is that we are going to have shade. So eventually we want to put shade. That's the problem with playgrounds, honestly, in our area in the summers. You can use them in the morning and the evening. Because they are so hot. So that would be my recommendation, is that the equipment that you're utilizing, you look at how you can put sunshades or sails or something over it so that it can be played on more often. But yes, that is in the next phase of what we want to do, is look at how do we shade all of it.
Thank you.
Mhm.
This isn't a question, but it just a comment about, this whole process shows the power of partnerships. And, you talked about how throughout the process, people were coming on board with you. And so it's really exciting to see, it doesn't have to be the undertaking of one person, continue to build those, to network and build those partnerships, but then also the flexibility because it's ever evolving. So awesome. This was great. I loved hearing this process. And
Yeah,
I'm glad you guys are, yeah, getting to the
we're getting there.
inspection stage and yeah, finally some
Yeah.
of those openings. So that's exciting.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, I'll be very honest. It's like this 8-year process to happen in like 2 months, right? My husband would giggle. He's like, that's how your life works, Wendy. But we started construction at the beginning of June. So I guess if I step back for a second, Tristan's Trail was actually built 2 years ago on a different space on this land. So because we had the equipment, we wanted to get that in. And so then through the lease negotiations and all of this work and the development that had happened, we decided that a different acre of land was a better place for it. So the beginning of June, we started on the splash pad. Well, I don't know if any of you remember, but we've had like record rainfall this June. And so we're like, of course, it's like a drought, and we start digging and it rains. So the very first two things that we put in were the drains for the splash pad because then all the water drained out for that. But then then the next phase is that we actually moved Tristan's trail equipment. We pulled it all up, moved it to its new spot. So the splash pad and the trail are there, and we'll get the playground equipment moved in. But it's also just being flexible because, like, I would probably laugh if I went and looked at the first renditions of what we came up with and now how it's actually transpiring. But it's been a lot of work. Like I said, if we had the money to just hire people, it would be great. But like, I can tie rebar now. I know how to pour concrete. I mean, we put the insulation in walls, like you name it, I probably have done it. And so it's a lot of work if you're going to take on a lot of that. We have saved, probably 50 to $100,000 with the amount of work that we've done ourselves. If you have the people to do that. But it's been a lot of time, but it's happening, so it'll be good.
Wendy, I'm sorry I wasn't here for the first portion of your presentation. Did you mention who your partners were? Who did you partner with all of this?
Yeah. So what we ended up partnering with, so we're leasing a 1 acre spot of land from another private entity. It's called Vision Trainer. Vision Trainer, basically, they had the vision to put in soccer fields, baseball fields. They just got funding for pickleball courts. And so they had kind of surveyed the community to see what the community wanted, and then they were working to build those things. And so it really was a natural fit for us to come in there. It just took a lot of negotiation because it was two private entities. Even though we're both wanting to better the town, it was, both of us trying to make sure that we were doing what was right for our own organizations. So, yeah, so after we get this built, I guess the one thing I didn't touch on is you have to have money afterwards, right? You just don't like get to leave it. And so all of our fundraising and all of that after we have it built is then going into the funds to repair and other things like that. We have in our lease a clause that if for any reason, like our organization would just say we're done, that Vision Trainer or the city could take it on from there. But essentially we're putting about $1 million improvement on someone else's land. So
Yeah.
for the city. But yeah. Yeah.
So as far as funding goes, who did you partner? Did you do all the fundraising by yourself as a nonprofit, or did you partner with like Variety? I think
Yep.
someone mentioned
So
Lions Club.
yeah, so we got the Iowa West Foundation grant. We got a $50,000 grant from them that purchased the splash pad. We did get a grant from Variety Iowa to purchase the changing table that also included the height adjustable sink because I worked some magic in that negotiation. But the rest of it has all been private donations or grants that we've written, fundraisers. We do a mouse derby. We hold a Trainer Days 3-day event for the community. So just looking at other ways that we can raise funds for it. Yeah, there's a couple of larger grants that are on my next couple of weeks dockets whenever I can sit at a computer for a little bit longer time. Being in a community of 1,500, like it's a small community, right? We don't have a ton of businesses. So for us to go out and get large corporate sponsorships and things like that, there's not a lot of connection to our community. So that's been really hard, for us to say, hey, we have the spinner. Could you donate $15,000? Many of them don't see the return in the investment, right? Unless they somehow have a connection to Trainer. So I would say if that is probably one of our biggest challenges is that we are such a small community, and we don't have more of a larger corporation who would be like, yeah, I'm going to put my name on that, and help with that. So it's also, so originally it was three. One of the gals was like, I gotta bow out. That was fine. So it was two. So there's two of us originally who started it, who are still on it. And then Lisa, Tristan's mom, has come on to it too. So it's really the three of us, doing all of this and going out and having the asks and then getting the volunteer basis to come help us build. Yeah. There's a blessing and a challenge when you're such a small committee.
Yeah.
Sometimes you don't want too many cooks in the kitchen, and like we joke that our friends run from us now. When Wendy says she needs help right away, they can't find their phone. No.
Yeah,
So
I
yeah,
get that. Thank you.
yeah. I just think, like really finding somebody who's invested in your mission and what you're doing. There's a lot of playground companies out there. And there's a lot of playground companies that are giving grants. Well, what happens is they raise their prices so much more, and then they give you this grant that then actually they're still making the same amount of money. They're just making it look very different. And so, like I have a friend who's starting a playground company, and this one that we worked with started his own playground company. So it's something to be wary of and cognizant of, that you may be able to get the same amount of equipment cheaper at a different place without a grant, because that grant is just covering the cost of what they've increased the price of the equipment.
Which company did you end up going with, or would you recommend?
So this gentleman, he's kept us on for 8 years, but he's niching off into um Jewish day schools. So like that's all he's doing, but he's been with us for 8 years so long that he's staying. That he's got to see this to fruition also. Yeah, yeah. But happy to talk, and we really have purchased equipment from a variety of places, because I'm like, I like that, or I like that with
Sure.
it. So yeah, we're working on getting, it's a new design, it's not out yet. Some like accessible swings, but not like, I'm like, you guys have probably never been to downtown Omaha. They have like this whole line of just swings that families can sit on. But this design is specifically designed to help with mobility impaired individuals get on and off the swings, and a locking mechanism. So we're trying to find really unique things that we can bring and we can showcase it. I would love to be able to get a wheelchair that could go in the water that we just had, right? And so there's a lot of things to think about as you're designing and doing this, but finding the right people who buy into the vision is what's key.
Any other questions?
And if they're watching the recording and anybody has questions, feel free to reach out. I am happy to share all the things that we have learned throughout this process.
Just give you some extra time because you're probably out working.
I know, right? If you could
Tying your
give
bar or
me maybe
something.
till August, yeah. So I'm a little slow to respond to it. I guess one of the things that you had said early on was, so the Common Coalition is a new organization. It's about a year and a half old, that is formed. It was basically formed to combat the Texas versus Kennedy lawsuit that was putting the 504 at risk, with Nebraska and Iowa. And so we're really formed to protect the civil rights of individuals with disabilities. So that was the first thing that we went after. So I was on the ground hitting it in the Nebraska Capitol and the Iowa Capitol, working to get that done. So yeah. And then
Effective campaign.
yeah. Yeah. So, but yeah, I would love to, more people who want to get playgrounds going together. We can form a circle, have conversations, because the more that are built, the more accessible our communities and our state are for everyone. So it's not only, I want my kid's grandfather to be able to go and play with them too. And so just looking at how do we create a more inclusive world is what it's all about.
Absolutely. Well, Sean and I live in Northwest Iowa. We're in Carroll, so
Oh,
we're not
okay.
terribly far from Trainer. So we might have
Yeah.
to stop by sometime. But I think too, just getting the word out to those who may have a highway trip to Omaha, I think would be
Hmm.
fantastic. And they have a doctor's appointment or other
Right?
appointments. It would be a great place to
Yeah.
stop and
Hmm.
enjoy a little water for a while.
Yeah, just stop. And we've tried to think of it all. And so we know that we're not
Sounds
there
like,
yet, but we will be.
yes,
So,
it's definitely a labor of love.
yes, I would love to have all of you come out and see it and play.
Yeah. Well, thank you so much for your time. We'll let you go and let us know if you have any questions. And we'll get this recording out there. And if there's anything we can do to help Wendy, we're
So,
with you.
thank you. Mhm.
Thank you. Have a great
Uh-huh.
day.
You too. Bye bye.
Bye.